it's me again, and here we go with Peru. So it's going to be a bit of a long one. As well, 2500 BC, people in what is now Peru began farming. As about 700 years later, in 1800 BC, they were making pottery, but the first South American civilization was the Chavin, as it rose in what is now Peru in about 900 BC. As the Chavin did not invent writing, but they were skilled architects, stonemasons, potters and goldsmiths, as they built both brick and stone, and their engineers were capable of building dams and reservoirs and all that. As Chavin farmers used irrigation on the land, as they grew maize, which was their staple food, squashes, beans. They also grew cotton and more on looms, as they raised llamas, alpacas, and for meat and wool. As the Chavin take their name from the great religious centre at Chavin de Huantar, as it was two stone temples. Little is known about the Chavin religion, but they worshipped the jaguar god, as they buried their dead with goods including pottery, containers of food and drink. And they likely believe that the dead would need them in the next life. But the Chavin civilization disappeared about 200 BC. And in southeast Peru, another culture called the Paracas flourished between 400 BC and 300 AD, as they built a large settlements around on artificial mounds, as they buried their leaders on dry and windswept Paracas Peninsula, as the climate mummified several bodies and also preserved their clothes. And from about 1000 BC to 700 AD, a culture called the Nazca existed in southeast Peru, as were famous for the Nazca lines and all that. As they were created on the desert and best seen from the air. As such, these include animals such as spiders and monkeys, as the exact purpose of the lines is unknown. And further north, there was a culture called Maque or Machina, who flourished from about 50 AD to 700 AD, as they lived in coastal valleys in northern Peru. And like other Peruvian cultures, Maque farmers built canals to irrigate their crops, as they grew maize, potatoes and peanuts, as they also grew cotton as well. As Mahe were a warlike people, and warriors had a high status within society, but the Mahe were also traders, as they imported things like feathers from the Amazon, as the Mahe were dexterous goldsmiths and silversmiths, as they were also skilled potters, as the Mahe also built pyramid temples, as the greatest temples was the Hua del Sol, or Temple of the Sun. However, it's based measuring about 224 meters by 134 meters, and stands at 46 meters high. As it took at least 50 million adobe bricks to build the temple, it is believed. And in later years, Mahe culture, two empires grew in what is now Peru. In north, it was the Empire of Tiwanaku, and a capital across the border in Bolivia, and it began to rise to greatness about 500 AD. And by the time it was at its peak around 850 AD, Tiwanaku controlled about 350,000 square kilometers of territory. As the people of Tiwanaku Empire are noted for their skill as stonemasons and potters. And in the south of Peru, another strong state called Huari grew up, as Huari began to grow about 600 AD, and soon controlled the whole area. As the people of Huari also traded very long distance, but both the states of Tiwanaku and Huari collapsed to about 1100 AD. And by about 1080, a place called the Chimu created an empire in what is now northern Peru and created its capital at Chanchan. As the Chimu worshipped the moon, as they believed the moon caused it to rain and also controlled thunder and lightning, as they also mummified the dead, as the body was put into position and tied with ropes, as it was then wrapped in cloth, as the Chimu were also deft potters and metal workers, as the craftsmen worked in gold and silver, and made blades of copper and bronze for tools, as the Chimu also dug irrigation canals and built reservoirs, as the Chimu were conquered by the Incas in around 1466. As the Incas ruled a great, one of the most well-known empires in South America, but for only a short time. At its peak, the Inca Empire lasted less than a century before it was destroyed, decimated by the Spanish. In 1300, the Incas founded the capital of Cusco, and they were only a small tribe, but they came to rule a vast empire, including most of Peru and parts of Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, and northwest Argentina. As the expansion began in 1438, and the ruler Pachacuti, and continued under his successors. And at the top of Inca society was the empire, the Sapa Inca, and his title means unique Inca, as the Incas believed their rulers were descended from the sun god, and he was treated with great respect, as visitors had to remove their footwear if they approached the Sapa Inca, and had to carry a burden on their back to show their respect for him. As they traveled, and when he travelled, Sapa Inca was carried in a litter. It's kind of like a chair carried by a load of men, like people. As below the Sapa Inca were the nobles, and below them were a class of men called Caracas, and they were not necessarily Incas. And when the Incas conquered the people, they took the leaders' sons and taught them to rule the Inca way. As then they became Caracas, as at the bottom of Inca society were craftsmen and farmers, and the people were part of extended families called Alios, and each was ruled by a man called one of a Caracas, and in theory, the Sapa Inca owned all land and wealth in the empire, as the Sapa Inca gave farmers land to grow, and in return, they had to do some work for him, and the Sapa Inca reserved some land for himself, and some would be set aside to support the temples and priests. And the Inca farmers had to pay a kind of tax by working for the Sapa Incas and temples land. And sometimes they had to work on projects like the building of roads and bridges. And the Incas were polytheistic, as they worshipped several gods, and the most important one was Inti, the sun god, as Incas also worshipped Coela, the moon goddess, wife of the sun, as they also worshipped Apa, god of thunder, who controlled the rain, as Incas had lost a host of priests and priestesses to serve their gods in temples throughout the empire's. Priests were also surgeons who performed simple operations, as patients chewed cocoa leaves to dull the pain, and priests bit the heads of a type of ant and used the jaws as clips to close the wounds. And as we all know, the Inca Empire was virtually destroyed by the Spanish conquistadors or conquerors. Even before the conquistadors arrived, smallpox began to spread among the Incas, as they had no resistance to the diseases we brought over, and so the Inca Empire was weakened before Pizarro came, As worse, the Inca Empire was afflicted by civil war at the time, and when Emperor Hyana died in 1527, he did not name a successor, as there were two claimants to the throne, as Hyana had many wives, and his chief wife, or Kaya, had a son called Herskar. However, he had an older brother called Atahualpa, and his mother was one of Hyana's ordinary wives. As the two half-brothers, Huskar and Atahualpa, fought a civil war, as Atahualpa eventually won, and he took revenge on his enemies. However, when the Spanish came, Atahualpa's surviving enemies were willing to join him against the empire. In 1532, a small force of Spanish, about 100 infantry and 67 cavalrymen, arrived on the coast, and they were led by Francisco Pizarro, who lived from around 1475 to 1541. At first, the Spanish inspected the country and entered a town called Cajamarca, and Atahualpa was staying in the camp nearby. And Atahualpa was not afraid of a small group of strangers, and after all, he had thousands of soldiers at his command. But Pizarro's plan to kidnap him, as Atahualpa and several thousand bodyguards entered a square in the town, and there were only a few entrances to the square, which were easily blocked. Furthermore, the Spanish hid guns in the buildings around the square. As Spanish friars were like monks, approached Sapa Inca and offered him a Bible. As Atahualpa had never seen a book before, and he threw it on the ground, and the friar called on the Spanish to avenge what he thought was an insult to God. As the Spanish fired cannons and muskets, and the cavalry charged, as the Incas had never seen horses before either. As the sight of a man charging on a horse would understandably be terrifying and all that. As the Spanish were also protected by steel armour, as they carried steel swords. As steel was a metal that was unknown to the Spanish at the time. As bodyguards had little chance against the Spanish, and thousands were slaughtered in the square. Atahualpa himself was made prisoner, as the Inca Empire was rather like a pyramid with a Sapa Inca on the top, and orders flowed from him. As capturing him was rather like cutting the head from the body. Often the Incas did not know what to do, and eventually Atahualpa offered to fill a large room with gold and a small room with silver twice over if the Spaniards would let him go. In the meantime, Spanish reinforcements arrived. However, when the gold and silver was collected, Pizarro has no intention of letting the Sapa Inca go, as he claimed that Atahualpa was plotting against him, and the Sapa Inca was tried for treason and sentenced to death. At first, he was sentenced to be burnt, as Atahualpa was horrified because he had believed his spirit would be destroyed if his body burned, and could not enter the afterlife. Instead, he agreed to be baptized as a Christian and was strangled with a rope. So in other words, he may have been hung. And the Spaniards then ruled through puppets, as they made a Sapa Inca, which was made of Sapa Inca. However, the puppet Sapa Inca soon became disenchanted and fled from Cusco. And in 1536, he raised armies and besieged both Cusco and Lima, which the Spanish founded in 1535. But both sieges failed, as the Incas besieged Cusco again in 1537, and failed yet again. But the Inca resistance did not end, as the puppet Sapa Inca fled to the coast of Cusco and his supporters and ruled a small Inca state called Ricambamba, and was finally conquered by the Spanish in 1572. And after the destruction of the Inca Empire, Peru became a Spanish viceroy. The Spanish took much of the land in Peru, and the natives, the native inhabitants, were made to work on it as other natives. Other people were made to work in silver mines, where they died in thousands. As smallpox was like a serious killer, and the Spanish also tried to convert the Peruvians to Christianity, as their natives get their old religion under the Christian veneer. In the late 18th century, there was a native rebellions in Peru, which none were successful. As the discontent continued to simmer, as the British colonies in North America provided an example of how colonists could break free from the colonial masters and all that, and colonial parent countries and all that. And later, the idea of the French Revolution reached Peru, as finally the Spanish colonies in South America rebelled. And in 1820s, General Jose de San Martin landed on the coast of Peru with 5,000 Argentine and Chilean soldiers, as he occupied Lima and declared Peruvian independence on the 28th of July 1821. As royalists fought on, but they were defeated at the Battle of Ayacucho on the 9th of December 1824. And they followed decades of political instability within Peru, and for the most of the period between 1845 and 1862, General Ramon Castilla was president of Peru and restored order, but as under his rule, Peru prospered by selling guano, or bird droppings, as fertilizer, as the first railway in Peru was built in 1851 and where African slaves were freed. However, in 1880, guano supply was running out, as then between 1879 and 1883, Peru fought a war with Chile over deposits of sodium nitrate. It was called the War of the Pacific, and ended in humiliation for Peru. The Treaty of Ancon in 1883, Peru was forced to surrender territory to Chile, and in 1885, General Andres Caceres became dictator of Peru, as he ruled Peru until 1895, when Nicolas de Perola led a revolution. And under President Perola from 1895 to 1899, and Jose Pardon from 1904 to 1908, and Guillermo Belaúnde from 1912 to 1914, Peru prospered as they began to export sugar and cotton, as it became a booming industry. As Peru also exported oil and rubber, as more railways were built and factories opened, as the urban working class in Peru grew rapidly, and in 1919 trade unions were held 2 general strikes to demand 8-hour days. Augusto Leguía was president from 1808 to 1912, as he came to power again in 1919, as he ruled for 11 years, as the period was called Oncenio, from the word meaning 11. However, the depression of the 1930s meant demand for Peru's exports declined, and the country was faced with an economic crisis, and in August 1930, Leguía was deposed in a military coup. And then in 1924, Victor Raúl de la Torre on an American Popular Revolutionary Front Alliance, or APRA, and in 1931, de la Torre stood for president, as Sanchez Cerro beat him, but APRA claimed the election was fraudulent, as a virtual civil war between the APRA and the government started, as Sanchez Cerro was assassinated in 1933, as he was succeeded by General Oscar Benavides, as in 1948 the army led another coup and General Manuel Odera came to power, and he ruled until 1956, when Manuel Prada became president. And in 1863, Fernando Belaunde became president of Peru. However, in 1968, the army staged another coup as General Juan Velasco took power as a new government nationalized many industries within Peru and formed agriculture. But in 1975, Peru suffered from inflation, unemployment, and a growing public debt. In August 1975, General Francisco Morales Bermudez replaced Velasco in another coup, and in 1980 elections, the president were held. But from 1976 onwards, Peru suffered from terrorist attacks from the Central Domain, also or Shining Path. That's from September 1990. Where are you going? I think I'll stay here for now. I'll stay here for now. Much as I like when there's nothing that I really need from any of them. As in September 1990, Emil Guzman, leader of the Sendero, was captured in 1992. Alberto Fujimori became president as he managed to tame inflation but resigned in November 2000. As in Alan Garcia was elected president in Peru in 2006. As Arante Hama became president in 2011. As the economy is still growing steadily as poverty is declining. And in 2009, a US-Peru trade promotion agreement came into effect, as Pedro Pablo Kaczynski became president of Peru in 2016. Its population stands around 31 million. And then there's a really very fortress located in the traditional port of Callao. As it's the most important port in Peru, as the castle was built during the colonial period, as its enormous walls are made of stone and moved from nearby island of San Lorenzo, and serves to protect the port from pirate attacks, which was a frequent occurrence back then. Which was a very common occurrence back then. And there's sort of a gloomy place, and one of the most gloomy places in the fortress is the Dungeon Without Doubt, which held hundreds of people in kind of like inhumane conditions who would then die after several days in captivity. As it would be noted that the place was also the scene of a very important feat at the independence war of Peru and Latin America definitively, as the legend has it that the spirits of the sea soldiers and the mysterious lady in white still wander through the passages of the staircases and all. Yeah, that is Peru for you, yeah. Bye for now.